Hello and welcome to another Daily Muppet. In today's video, I want to get a good summary of a lot of the news that's been going on over the last couple of days and just where things are at the present moment, as far as I know, on everything. Obviously, I do the lives and I'll have a live later today doing a video on the latest news as well as the predictions for the Premier League that I want to make and all of that as well. However, there's a few things to talk about at this point in time and cover that I think are important. So I want to talk about the goalkeeper situation, Baleba, um, Rasmus Højlund's situation, Garnacho's, and of course sponsorship that came out just this morning. So let's get right into it. Starting with the goalkeeper situation, it seems that United have made it pretty clear that this summer a goalkeeper is unlikely to join. The situation has been for maybe 3-4 weeks now, essentially, that a goalkeeper had become less likely, where previously it was more likely. But as I updated early on in the tour when I arrived, it was my information after conversations I had that a goalkeeper was becoming less likely. Now, United continued to explore a move for a goalkeeper over the last few weeks. They had contacts with Donnarumma, they had contacts with other people, they've had contacts with all of them to kind of explore what are the options out there. I think part of the idea was to see whether it might be an opportunity to do a deal for someone like Donnarumma this summer. Could it be available on a cut price? Could it be something, where the money might be a little bit easier? What could be possible in that case? But in the end, between the cost of his fee and the cost of his wages, the main view had been that the wages were just too high, the costs were just too high, and it was just going to be, frankly, a bit impossible to do. So in that sense, effectively they have now kind of moved towards ruling out a move for Donnarumma at this time and say, well, we're just not going to get him this summer. Now, Lamens is also an option that is on the table. But again, at this point in time, the biggest thing here is they were looking to need a departure in order to get an in. And that has not happened. Onana, as we know and have talked about, was very much set to stay this summer. After about mid-summer, that decision was made. There's no real interest in a purchase for him, and he will likely start the season as number one. The intention for a long time was to bring in somebody for competition, and there, of course, lies Lamens. United made an offer for Emi Martinez, but it was a loan, looking at something temporary that might give him, someone to work with that wasn't a huge commitment or outlay, but that didn't go anywhere. So Lamens, being a young prospect, is probably one I would still keep an eye on, just in case somehow there was the possibility of a keeper leaving this summer or in January or sometime in the future. He would still be one to watch and to note for the future. But at this point in time, due to the costs associated with a goalkeeper, due to the fact that there have been no sales of goalkeepers, which is one of the things that was very likely to be necessary for a keeper to come in, a goalkeeper has become less likely to almost probably not happening at all this summer. Which is a bit interesting because certainly it was something viewed as an important point by certain people throughout the club through the year. They had sincere interest in a few players, offers, things like that. But I think it was believed by the end of this that it was no good to spend the budget on it essentially this year, that it was unlikely to take the money that they want to spend elsewhere to spend on a keeper, especially at this point in time, as we move towards what may be the big move of the summer, and we'll see what happens here. And that is, of course, in Carlos Baleba. Now, the situation with Baleba is this, and this has been the strategy from the start. Get in touch with the player, get his encouragement, and want to join. He is. They've been encouraged by it. They're pushing on that front. Then the idea was to raise some funds to improve the financial situation, to have some more money available to do a deal here, which we'll talk about in a moment when it comes to Højlund and Garnacho, and to kind of try and figure out what was the type of offer that they could make for this. Now, Baleba is viewed as essentially the dream midfielder signing, the best signing that they could make in that midfield. And the problem that they encountered or have encountered on this is that it was looked at to be more likely for next summer. It still may be more likely for next summer, but they were thinking if we could do something now, it might be the best time to do it. Part of the view is that next summer there's going to be more competition for them. They believe Manchester City and Liverpool and potentially others will all be in for Carlos Baleba next year. There's also the factor of between the AFCON, between World Cup, between the different things going on, it's going to be a difficult window to make some big purchases like that. So now might be the best time to make a move for Carlos Baleba. They've got the encouragement from the player, and really the strategy was going to be here fairly imminently to put forward some kind of feeler in terms of the fee. I call it like a soft offer where you're approaching and saying, hey, well, what if we offered this amount? Where would we be at with this? Try to get some kind of response from Brighton, whether it's directly or through intermediaries, to where you can get an idea of what the price may be. Now, following that, United will have a decision to make. Is that soft offer good enough to open talks where they can put it as a bid and actually put their money where their mouth is and start discussions? Is the price that's quoted and responded to too far away to make it feel as though, all right, this isn't something we could do? Is the price at a point where potentially, is the price at a point where potentially we could just may have to raise some more money or all of that in order to, not in order to get the dealer to reach the price that's there. Now, my understanding of this was that United did need and do need some departures, some sales, and to raise some funds in order to be able to have the flexibility that a deal like this might take. Because the expectation, of course, is that it would reach in the range of 100 million or something like that. Now, where we stand as of today, or at least as of yesterday, was that it was my expectation that United would be pretty soon proposing some kind of fee or offer or something like that via directly or intermediaries, I don't know, to see what kind of response that they get and determine where they go from there. Now, this could go, of course, a couple of directions. Should the soft offer not even be answered? Should this verbal offer, maybe you call it, or floated idea not actually be made, and not get a positive response? Or should the price come back way too high? You might get some responses, you might get some reports, some briefings that United are, probably passing up on doing the Baleba deal this summer because the costs are just considered too high, and you may not even get reports of an offer. If they get close on it, then you'll probably get something where United are entering into talks over the situation. Now, as of right this moment, there's been one article this morning that does concern me a bit on this, because we were kind of expecting this to be fairly imminent. This comes from the Telegraph today, stating that United are currently unwilling to pay the fee quoted for Baleba at around 115 million. Now, it says that there haven't been direct contacts, things like that. That's fine. It doesn't rule out the move. It says the interest is still there and he's the player that United would want, but they're operating within a tight budget. I don't know that we would have approached and explored all of this if we were operating within a tight budget. So I'm not yet sure what to make of it. It's hard to tell if it's a read on the situation to say United don't have the current funds and resources to be able to do it. I don't know. That is an unknown at this point in time, but it's not a positive report. Let's put it that way, in that it certainly is stating pretty bluntly United are not willing to pay the fee required for Baleba right now, which might imply that the kind of soft launch, or the kind of the little move for Baleba initially has not gone well, or that the response has been higher than we're willing to work at, or that we're not at a position where we can afford that and maybe we need to raise more funds first. I don't know. It's not a positive report. I don't know if it's in response to this. We'll see if others follow. If others follow in suit, then I think, unfortunately, we're going to have to dim our hopes on this. But Yeah, we really don't know at this point in time whether it would have happened that quickly or whether it's just, you know, a basic kind of report. Now, it doesn't come from your typical United side reporter, but we'll see what else comes up on this front moving forward. But I do expect, if it's bad, that we'll see more things like that. If the response to this kind of verbal offer, soft offer, whatever you would call it, is poor, then I think we'll see more articles like that. That's what worries me a bit, is that's kind of almost exactly what I would expect to see if it's not going well in those discussions. But we'll have to see if more come back from that. It wasn't labeled as an exclusive. It wasn't anything like that. So we'll see. But United are certainly this week, or pretty imminently, kind of expected to be exploring, what it might take. And so we'll see what comes out of it now, and what that response is. And part of that is because there's the expectation that, sales are going to be made and funds raised. So start moving ahead on this kind of deal a little bit and see where we're at. Moving forward with that into the Rasmus Højlund situation, this has moved a little bit. I updated yesterday that while he was initially completely closing the door to any kind of move, I said my understanding was that the door had opened a little bit. Now, AC Milan are pushing ahead. There's some reports today that he's more considering that at this point in time. They still seem the most likely. I said it was a bit weird because there were seemingly people around Højlund at the time where he was closing the door to Milan, which is kind of bizarre to me because I think it would be a great move. But the up-to-date information that I have is that he had opened the door a bit to a move and wanted to look at what kind of options were out there, explore some of the other potential moves besides just Milan, though Milan still may be the most likely at this point in time. So, presently, he seems to be opening the door to some kind of loan move, perhaps accepting that his time may be up at United. The Milan deal is probably the closest one on the table to something happening, and it seems that he may be coming around to that might be the best offer there. So it could be a loan, it could be a permanent deal. We don't know at this stage what he's open to and where it'll be, but certainly there's been a lot of people, as well as his advisors and such, pushing him to take this kind of move, his agents and things, to take a move and get a move away and get minutes, because he's certainly not expected to be getting them at United following Šeško's arrival, and obviously the clear message sent at the weekend about the whole situation. So I think he's become, as far as I've heard, a bit more open to a move, willing to at least look at the options on the table and make that decision. I don't think he's decided on Milan yet. He's wanted to look at others. There are others available, but it seems we're moving towards the likelihood that he will take some kind of move away from Manchester United this summer, and we could expect to see that in probably the next few days. On Alejandro Garnacho, the situation, of course, is Chelsea are advancing in these conversations. There still remains a gap between the clubs in terms of the overall valuation of the player, but it does feel as though we are moving towards this one kind of happening one way or another. And it will happen one way or another. He's going to go to Chelsea in the end. I think United will end up accepting a deal in the end. That probably is an in-between. Maybe it'll be like 35 million plus 10 million in add-ons or something, and a deal that reaches a total that's closer to what we value him at, but starts closer to what Chelsea do. And it's going to be a tough kind of thing there. Certainly they're trying to squeeze the best deal out of United possible, given that the situation, Garnacho not going to play and all that, but he's been holding out the entire summer for Chelsea, so it seems like that's where it's headed, that's where it's going to end, and that's what's going to happen. Like I said in my live, I'd be tempted to for United just to hold out now, and if they don't pay, let him sit. But at the same time, we do kind of need the money. It would help us quite a lot. So I guess we can see where things are at with that. But this does seem to be progressing forward now. These two sales are kind of a big deal for us at this point in time. These sales are kind of a big deal for us right now because, of course, we need this kind of money to balance the books and make another move potentially this summer, be that Baleba or somebody else. Would we look at alternatives if Baleba is off the table? I'm not so sure. We've been looking at Ederson, we've been looking at Wharton, and we've been looking at Ederson and Wharton, but are we going to turn to a slightly different type of midfielder? I'm not so sure, because they are different midfielders to what Baleba brings, and he's certainly viewed as the kind of top target. So that being said, these sales are important. These sales do help move us towards potentially the ability to afford it. Now, if it were that we did not have the ability to afford that over 100 million price, maybe these sales will push us to being able to do so. So I guess we'll see what happens now. But Højlund and Garnacho moving forward, we may actually get to save some money here, maybe gaining 30-40 million in PSR, which would have a big space, and all of that. So that could help us a lot, but currently an unknown on that front. The other thing that could help us in a way is sponsors, giving more revenues, and all of that will give us more ability to spend. And of course, this morning there was announced United having a 3-year partnership with Coca-Cola as for the UK and Europe, I believe, and they'll be sponsoring like the events, the pre-match parties, the things like that they're doing right now, and we'll be part of that as well. So it appears that United are working on this. I would suspect there's more to come. We don't know how much money that's worth, but obviously these kind of things add up. The Coca-Cola sponsorship, then then if they can get a little match day sponsorship, the little pop-up shop, the little pop-up pub party thing, the away games, all of these things, a few million added to the coffers just gives United more room to work with in these windows and more room to operate within. So that's a good sign as well. So I tried to make this a quick summary because the lives are quite long. But yes, as it stands, goalkeeper has become even more unlikely. Donnarumma essentially ruled out. High wages and high costs associated, just too much. United still potentially open to a keeper, but they would need a departure. They don't want to use their budget on a keeper at this point in time. If they don't end up getting a midfielder, could that change? I suppose, but they've been pretty insistent on needing a sale in order to do something in that area, and at the moment there's nothing imminent for a departure in the goalkeeper area. On Baleba, it's expected that we're going to make some kind of approach via intermediaries or direct to kind of see what they would accept, see if our initial kind of offering would be something that would get a positive response or open the door to a deal. That may have happened already. That may be happening now. We may have a slight negative response to that already based on that report. We'll see what follows that, or if it's just a little bit more speculative. We don't know as of yet. Højlund becoming more open to a move, looking at assessing his options. Milan there at the front of the table, and could be the simplest deal to do. Maybe a loan with an option, could be an obligation, could be permanent. In addition to that, Garnacho advancing on a deal with Chelsea at this point in time. That one should get done too. So it's testy days as we near match week 1 to see where this is going to end up at this point in time. In terms of Baleba, it's always been my knowledge that they would be asking for around 100 million. I think United would have known that. But if it's significantly higher than that, and there's not a lot of flexibility in the structure of a deal, that could prove problematic. So we'll see what comes out later today, and what we pick up from there. But certainly United, we're going to try. So we'll see if there's any other indications of the response back to the try, or if it's happened yet as we get into it this afternoon. So make sure to catch later on the live today. We'll see what we have by that point in time. Thanks for watching today's video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on, and I will see you all in the next one. Thank you.